Welcome to Safe Doesn't Scale. I'm your host, David Walsh, founder of Limelight. This show is for marketing and growth leaders with a chip on their shoulder who are tired of playing it safe. I'm very excited today. I've got Titus from Faved. Stephen and I were just chatting. We're potentially competitors in a certain way, right? I think I'd love to hear about your journey. You've been doing this longer than me, influencer marketing. And so thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me, David. I think it's quite generous of you to potentially be hosting a competitor. Yeah, we started Faved 4 years ago, and we are a marketplace that connects brands with advertisers, with creators for flat fee sponsorships. And I'm sure we can get more into how Limelight and Faved are similar and different, but our fundamental belief is that creator partnerships is the future of marketing, and there needs to be a ton of infrastructure to be built. And the last 4 years of our journey has just re-emphasized that.
100%. And look, I think we were talking before, but all boats rise with the tide, right? I'm always interested in meeting people who have taken this big leap into influencer marketing, for better or for worse, right? When I got into it, I didn't know that much about it. I launched a watch company in 2017 that was an e-commerce business and used influencers, growth hacked Instagram, and grew that company over time. I actually ended up having the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders wearing my watches, which is my claim to fame. But when I launched Limelight, I had no idea about B2B, and I knew a lot about B2B as an industry, and I'd been selling software in B2B for a long time, but I decided B2B influencer is what I wanted to do. And I felt like marketing was shifting and changing pretty dramatically at the time to be less corporate logos and more personality-led marketing. Why did you start Faved, and why influencer?
It's going to sound as if we're just following you on every aspect, because my co-founder and I, straight out of uni, started a watch company too. And we're engineers by background, and we felt that everyone deserves to have a productivity smartwatch on their wrist. So we built what at the time we called the Death Watch. And it was supposed to make you more productive by counting down to your death, but more importantly, counting down to the important milestones in your life, whether it was buying a house, getting ready for an interview, for an exam. And fortunately, we didn't call it Death Watch, and we rebranded. And we realized when we did a Kickstarter round that there are all these communities on Reddit and pockets of people that if they rally behind you as a startup, you can get to pretty high volume of sales very quickly. You don't need to go through traditional advertising routes. You don't need to spend a ton of money on paid media channels.
Right.
You just need to pull on the heartstrings of the right person and niche communities. And that opened our eyes to the world of influencer marketing. Sadly, we still had to go through a brutal meandering of multiple failed startups before we got to Faved. But when we started talking to creators, we realized that brand deals is how most of them monetize a full-time living. And we felt that every podcast, every YouTube video you watch has a sponsor. Surely this is a solved, perfectly functioning industry. But when we spoke to a NordVPN or an Athletic Greens, who were at the time some of the largest advertisers, we realized that getting from allocated budget in touch with the creator and that content going live is a very fragmented process. And it was begging for a ton of tools to be built, including a marketplace, which then got us starting to build Faved.
That's awesome. Well, I did not know that about the watch, and I could go in depth about that experience, but let's keep it to influencer for at least for the beginning. So how big is Faved at the moment in terms of employee size, customer size, revenue? Where are you guys at?
We are a team of 8, and we have over 30,000 creators on the platform, hundreds of brands who use us. And we decided to focus on a specific part of the influencer industry, which is flat fee partnerships. And we believe that with influencer marketing, you can do commission-based partnerships, you can gift them free product, you can invite them to events. And there is a very strong segment of advertisers that want to just pay flat partnership fees and almost buy media as if they were buying an advertising slot. And I know on LinkedIn, there's a lot of pontificating about relationships are more important and authenticity is the keyword that we all love to use. But I frankly feel that in order for the industry to grow from the tens of billions of dollars that it is at today to an order of magnitude higher, you need to become more transactional. You need to be more merit-based. And as a creator, you need to be rewarded for the audience performance and content performance, not for having had beer with the marketing manager of a brand. So we're 30,000 creators, hundreds of brands, and this year we'll process over tens of millions of dollars in money that flows from brands to creators.
That's awesome. Well, congratulations. I thought when I started this new startup, my last one was a HR software company and I was selling to people leaders. I really wanted to go sell to marketing leaders. At the time when I was thinking about what I wanted to do, I nearly went the consumer route, but I was a bit afraid. I was like, you know what? Building a consumer startup, I know B2B. Let me stay within my lane. And now I think like the best of both worlds. In a marketplace, there's nothing more rewarding than seeing money be exchanged through the marketplace directly to creators and those creators making a living from the product that you built. I think it's like one of the most rewarding pieces of what we build. But we're very focused on the brand side because we believe they're the ones with the budget, they're the big unlock, and we want to build infrastructure for them. I'm seeing you nod. Is that the same on your side?
Absolutely. I would say that part of our business journey, my co founder and I, a sin we committed early on with our previous startups was raising VC.
Tell me more.
We raised money from investors and they became our gods in some sense. And I think a lot of first time founders make this mistake where we felt that our job as founders was to take the company to the next round. And we thought that we have to please our investors and make sure they're happy with how our company looks and what fancy product we can discuss and ship versus thinking about who truly helps why are you really building a business? Are you building it for your employees? Are you building it for your investors? Are you building it for other people on LinkedIn and your other friends who are building businesses? Or are you building it to solve a problem for a customer? And so to us, we realized that this time around with Faved, we need to be maniacal about the customer dollar flowing into our coffers in some sense.
Right.
Because that means that we can be long term greedy. It means that we will listen to no one apart from the customer. And we will not parade ourselves to look impressive to anyone other than a brand who uses the platform and flows dollars from their budget into the pockets of creators. Because even if we're super friendly with a creator or a talent agency, ultimately, if we don't deliver what they need, which is paid brand deals, we're of no use to anyone. And so we've designed the whole platform to start from we think of the transaction as starting from the brand, from what are the brand's goals? Are they trying to get awareness? Are they trying to get sales? And then building the platform out so that they can be connected with the right creator and eventually get customers, which is what we're all trying to do.
Wow. Okay, cool. So I last company raised $23 million and I had a very similar experience, which was try grow as fast as you can, right? I did everything wrong actually. I was like, let me hire as many people, raise as much capital as I can. Ended up becoming separated and disconnected to the customer base. All I was focused on internally was hiring more team members, making sure we hit our revenue targets and keeping this board of and investors happy every month and every quarter. And the reality is I was just like burnt out and I didn't even realize and I got so disconnected and I was like, you know what, like this time around let me do it the right way. Now starting a bootstrapped company is one of the most challenging things, right? So I'm curious, have you ever been tempted to take on funding? Is there a certain amount that you would take on or are you like bootstrap forever?
We're not religious about bootstrap versus VC. And every time I see a pre-seed company raise 500 million with a pitch deck, yes, we are tempted to. It opens up the possibilities of experimentation you can do as a business.
Exactly.
But for us, what we realized being bootstrapped was that we dovetailed our goals with the brand's or the customer's goals as tightly as possible because the only way we'd get a dollar into our bank account repeatably from customers was if we designed the platform so that one, they could do their work super fast, and two, if they kept coming back because we were getting them the goals that they were trying to achieve through partner with creators. And ironically, despite talking about bootstrapping, we think of it somewhat in the Jeff Bezos Amazonian model of the one thing we know for sure that customers will want 10 years from now is cheaper prices, faster delivery, and more selection. And I think that simplicity as a marketplace for us translates to more creators that are relevant, ideally better pricing because we get to see across multiple deals what brands should be
Yeah.
paying companies, and a faster flow of work from budgeting to campaigns going live. And I think for us, when we align that with our brands paying us more every month and are they expanding budgets because they're getting more customers efficiently, it made all the sense to just focus on revenue as our funding model versus VC.
Right, makes a ton of sense. And for those listening, right, marketing leaders, mid-cap companies, what type of creators and influencers do you focus on? Or actually, let's start on the brand side. What is the brand side focus for you? Who's your ideal customer profile and why? And has it always been the same or did you evolve it over time?
It's definitely evolved. We started off going for the obvious brands that we'd see on YouTube. So we'd work with Athletic Greens, NordVPN, Squarespace. And our ideal customer is an advertiser that wants to experiment with influencer partnerships and then scale it. So, in some sense, a shout out to your own title, Safe Doesn't Scale. We realized that the best brands in the space are the ones that are willing to take large risks and they want to
Yeah.
be everywhere. And so, brands that want to be the renowned name in their category, whether in the case of consumer, that's in supplements or cosmetics, a lot of brands that we work with, or in the space of B2B now, we work with a load of AI brands. So we work with Luma AI, or we'll work with brands that are a Notion, for example, that are trying to get in front of prosumer audiences. And what we found is as long as you want to work with creators and every time someone thinks about your category, whether it's CRM, whether it's a voice dictation tool, whether it's a note taking app, if you want to be the renowned name in your category, it means you need to work with hundreds of creators every month across YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, and you want to do that by paying the most trusted voices. That's our ideal customer.
That's awesome. Okay, cool. Yeah, when we started, we were building a marketplace, so supply and demand was important, right? And on the demand side, supply side was relatively easy, right? Because you can get creators and influencers who want to make money onto a platform pretty quickly. The brand side was a bit harder, and so we lowered the barriers to entry. We were like very much open to a lot of folks, and then we realized actually a self-service model focused on startups who don't really have the budget is probably not the right ICP for us. We need to be investing in and in partnerships that are larger and they're thinking about this with a longer term horizon. I want to ask you, how do you think about measurement when a brand comes to you, head of growth, head of paid ads, maybe at a B2B company, and they're like, look, we want to do influencer, but I have this amount of budget. How do we make sure that there's alignment at the early stages so that they continue to spend and increase that spend over time? How are you helping them unlock that and understand measurement? And how do you align goals in the early stages of a partnership?
Yeah, this is a painful lesson I think every business learns after a ton of churn is if you're not aligned at the very beginning about what is your customer trying to achieve with your service product, it's a tired metaphor, but you're just carrying a leaky bucket and you're building a leaky bucket. And so for us, we start off by asking, are you trying to get awareness as an advertiser? Are you so that eyeballs to your landing page? Are you trying to get clicks? Are you trying to get people who are qualified and interested in your product? Or are you trying to get sales? And that's the most important thing we've found to even know if the advertiser themselves has thought about it. Or in a lot of cases, we'll get advertisers who will come to us and ask us, what should we be expecting to get out of creator
Yeah.
partnerships? We always push those advertisers to go back to their teams and go, whoever is giving you budget, wherever you're drawing this from, commit to them, this is what you're going to achieve, and then get their reaction as a yes or no so that you're not going back with awareness when your team expected sales or vice versa, even in a lot of cases. So
Got
we
it.
start with that. And then after that, we'll do a monthly review of are we hitting those numbers or directionally are we heading towards those numbers or not? And what are the levers that we can pull to help you get closer?
And when you think about the space that you operate in, as at least in the consumer side, so I did a lot of research on the influencer technology side on the consumer side, and it's somewhat saturated because it's a much longer. I mean, it's been in market for a lot longer. People have been using creators on the consumer side for 10 plus years now. Who do you think are, let me ask this the right way, who comes up in the deals that you want to close? Like, what are the top few companies that are sort of competitors to what you guys do in your mind?
Interesting. I think our largest competition still remains agencies. So it's not platforms really. And this is, we were talking about this before recording. I really think that this industry is so nascent that the sophistication is at an all time zero. When we go to an advertiser, the reason they'll say, why should we use Faved? The hesitation will be either we already have an agency, and these are mostly, I would say, they're mostly no name agencies in the sense that they're varying names deal to deal. It's not even a recurring big name, and it's never the large agencies, the holding companies. I can tell you that. And that's one of the encouraging signs I feel building a platform. And when I see a Limelight or others in the same space, the large agencies are servicing the Pepsis of the world that need a very different kind of strategic handholding. The advertisers we're trying to win, a BetterHelp, Skillshare, Brilliant, the Express VPNs, they're running a playbook and they just need tooling to scale. And so either they'll default to hiring a lot of headcount. I'd say that's another competitor to ours, or they'll work with a lot of freelancers or agencies and split it up by geography or split it up by platforms.
Got it. Okay, cool. Yeah, I think we feel the same, right? I think agencies are actually necessary for this industry because I think a lot of companies need a human in the loop, right? And when you're building a marketplace or a technology product, you want the company to do some of the work themselves, right? But you want to make it easier for them to be able to do it themselves. And sometimes they'll actually introduce their agency to do that human work, right? Where do you think Fave stands out in terms of quality of product? Like, what are the things that you're like, we are excellent at, one, two, and three?
So our USP is speed. So if you're a brand at the cusp of or you're bottlenecked by scale, you know the kind of creators, the category of creators, the platform where your creators live that you want to partner with. Faved is really good at showing you a list of curated, already priced names that you can deploy budget in the matter of a few days versus what normally takes a few weeks. So
Got it.
the fact that we've got creators that we go and warmly onboard, we've got their rates already, we can show you who else on the platform has done well, not done well with them, and then you can have content live in the matter of a few days is, I'd say, the biggest benefit that brands get with us.
Nice. Okay, cool. Marketing leaders listening to this, I think the question will be like, how do you guarantee performance when there's algorithms at play,
Yeah.
right? And algorithms change quite a bit, right? So, how do you manage expectations around deliverables? Like, you can only be as good as, matching the right creator, identifying, opportunities to create great content, but you can't guarantee results. So, what have you seen work well when, say, a campaign sort of goes sideways or creators aren't really performing? How do you kind of manage expectations, and what do you do to make sure that you limit those scenarios?
So, two things. One, we like to think of this compounding as the eighth wonder of the world, and we truly evangelize this to every brand where we'll go, regardless of what's happening with your metrics, you need to have a certain amount of your budget that you're spending consistently every month because this is partly performance and partly an awareness game. You need to be on people's LinkedIn feeds, their YouTube videos that they're watching, their Instagram feeds at a baseline. If not, your competitors will have a far better share of people's minds and you will just go into oblivion. You cannot just have spikes of a campaign every few weeks or a campaign every few months. You need to have a fundamental level of presence on people's feeds. And the second aspect to this is we almost think a bit about we think about this a bit as if it's a Harry Potter analogy of platform 9 3/4, where you can either remain a muggle and not take the leap, or you risk it a bit and cross the wall and go to the other side and discover this whole world of. And I think every brand has to make the 0 to 1 jump where they think, is influencer really for us? Is it going to work? And there is no way to find out. You cannot intuit it. You need to make the leap. You need to make the mistakes of picking the
Yeah.
wrong creators, mispricing creators. And once it works out, you then realize that, oh, I've now hit a cap of maybe I have 3 or 4 names that do well, but everyone else isn't performing to my expectations. And we tell brands that this is when you need to learn how to risk takingly go for categories that are non obvious. So if you're a CRM, you might think that all the creators that talk about workflow automation or sales are ideal to you, but you do need to go and work with perhaps creators that talk about performance coaching, creators that talk about education, creators that talk about being a freelancer, because you will discover new pools of audiences that are somewhere along the buyer journey for your product. And we feel that
Mm.
that's hit a wall. That proverbial wall is hit with content category, with pricing. Sometimes your own product hasn't caught up with competition. And so your creator performance is lower because of it. And you're blaming creator performance, but it's really that your product team hasn't been doing a good job.
No.
That's why that consistency matters. It's you've got to ride the different waves that come your way.
You said a couple of things that are really interesting. I think this idea of expanding beyond the exact ICP creator is something that is hard for people to grasp when they're trying influencer for the first time. They want to default to the known names, the big names, and the people that they think are the perfect fit. And I'm like, you're going to end up spending a fortune on these folks and get some level of reach, but their reach is very broad and it's actually not as targeted as you might think. And they are going to charge you a fortune. And so I think what you're saying is like, you need to go after maybe the smaller to medium sized influencers, but at the same time, think in different subsets and niches, that it doesn't necessarily need to be the perfect, audience match for your ideal customer profile. It's actually like this creator can still tell an authentic story and unlock a potential new pool and audience, which is so fascinating. I think I want to transition a little bit to AE SEO. This comes up all the time for us. And if you think about this, and I know you're going to nod your head, right? Creator and influencer and content in general has always been important, but now it's more important than ever. And there used to be this short shelf life of value of influencer where you get this spike of reach and engagement and website traffic and conversions. Now the shelf life of content and the value it brings is much longer because we have companies like Webflow, HubSpot, Bill.com, some of our customers tell us 6 months later, hey, our AE SEO has gone up through the roof because the LLMs are referencing this content. So tell us a little bit about how you think about AE SEO and how content can play a fit in that, and working with influencers can actually increase that, because at least I'm hearing every single marketing leader, the top priority for them is how do we rank better in LLMs? I'm assuming that's something that you hear too.
Increasingly so, and almost to the point of me saying all the time. I partly feel that this AEO versus SEO debate is, that meme that you see of Homer Simpson going back into the bushes and coming out with a different opinion or a different title. The common one I see on X is crypto bros that go out and come back in as now AI evangelists. I somewhere think that's what's happening with AEO and SEO, GEO. It's all the same thing. You're as an advertiser, if you're sophisticated enough to understand, your buyer is a viewer and you're trying to marry attention and authority, whether that's through PageRank, whether that's through landing in their chat GPT answers. It's fundamentally, I think, the same principles, which is how do you as a brand turn up in the places where your buyer is researching? And of course, the mechanics of this with creator partnerships is that Claude and ChatGPT will now reference Instagram Reels and YouTube videos and LinkedIn posts, Reddit quite heavily when providing answers. And the specifics we're seeing brands do are for YouTube videos, they'll try to shape the titles so that it's more suited towards the questions they know people are asking. If it's an Instagram Reel, they're truly just trying to work with voices, to your point, that might not necessarily talk to their niche audience, but that are highly trusted. Because this seems a bit far-fetched, but let's say you're selling a CRM. You might find out that a creator that talks about fitness has a higher trust factor than a creator that's constantly talking about how to make money online or what are the tools I use for my agency or sales process. And so if a running creator talks about HubSpot, it might just end up ranking higher on that person's ChatGPT answer than, say, a sales creator. Because ChatGPT is obviously personalizing to what the asker consumes as well.
Yeah, good point. Yeah. What are some of the pitfalls, right? I'm listening to this, I'm ahead of growth. I'm thinking about doing influencer marketing. I've unlocked 30, 40K in budget. What are some of the biggest mistakes that you see, and what should people try to avoid?
So, firstly, I think that if you don't have the chutzpah to go big, you're really going to struggle to succeed in influencer marketing as a brand because you'll be outvoiced by your competitors and your experimentation will be so small that you wouldn't have learned anything.
Put a number on that. Where do you actually think like the baseline should start at?
I'm so glad you asked because I'm trying to be more disciplined with my prospect conversations. Bring this number up. We think that anything less than $50,000, if you're doing flat fee paid partnerships on one single platform, $50,000 is the threshold. Anything less than that, and that ideally is spread around 20 to 30 different creator partnerships.
Yeah.
And all you'll get out of that in most cases is one or two creators that have directionally performed in the way that you want. And then you're looking to spend the next 50K in order to
Mm,
double down in that category. And we've seen once you cross the 100 to 150K range is when you can start having a target metric in terms of efficiency, in terms of for a dollar in, what should I get out in terms of impressions that are valuable to me or clicks that are valuable to me or sales. So one is missizing, I would say, your bet. I would say, having a discrepancy between ambition and
yeah,
risk
makes sense. Mm.
is what we see. And the other is on the flip end is being reckless, is wanting to be everywhere with everyone at all times and not actually looking under the hood of there's always going to be the Pareto law of 20% of your partnership budget is going to be driving the majority of your results. And you need to know maniacally what that 20% is and not assume that it's static. Month to month, campaign to campaign, the creators that work for you, the platforms that work for you, the format. Is it a text post? Is it a video? Is it a story? Is it a reel? Will keep changing. And you need to have a pulse in that.
So it's making sure that you have enough budget that you're actually committed to this for the longer term and you have enough, I suppose, experiments running. Number two is like making sure that you're not being reckless and just like going everywhere all at once and actually, and then I think number three is like not looking at the data, like not actually reviewing what's working and to identify what to double down on instead of kind of throwing your hands up in the air and saying, you know what, we just spent 50K and it didn't work. We actually didn't bother looking at the data of to see the trends and see the things that are working. That makes a ton of sense. Yeah, I like that. Where do
I,
you see the go ahead?
sorry, yeah, I'd say the third one is a good point, and that's more our fault. That's Limelight and Faved's fault more than it is the advertiser's fault because I think we're in one of the most tech and numerate averse industries I've encountered. And so it's our job as platforms to show advertisers what numbers they should be looking at simplistically and then almost give them a red green, are you doing good or not good?
Yeah, yeah, I agree. And look, when I started Limelight, I made it fully self-service because I was like, I can't hire people. I want to keep this lean and mean. And we had no customer success function, no account management function. It was just like go wild and see what happens. And I realized pretty quickly, like you actually need an account management function to be checking in with people. Like, you know, crazy to think that I didn't think that was important. Where do you see the industry going, right? So it's what is it? I'm looking at the clock and trying to find the date. It's July 9th right now. So it's like midway through 2026. Feels like influencers starting to heat up. Let me ask you a maybe more pointed question. In B2B, if you look at penetration of potential B2B companies that could be doing influencer marketing, where do you think we're at in terms of percentage? And maybe just take an estimate guess.
I'd say to answer that, I'd say with consumer, who you'd expect to be a decade ahead at least, that number, I see online the number varies anywhere between 20 to 30. I realistically, when you speak to brands, I think that number is in the 10-ish, 10 to 15% range in terms of the budget that brands spend on advertising versus the budget that they spend on creator marketing.
Interesting.
And so B2B, I'd wager that it's sub 1%. This is
Interesting.
very difficult for if you're LinkedIn native as a person, you will believe that it's probably the majority of brands. Everyone knows that creator partnerships are the future, and everyone's doing some version of a strategy working with creators. But when we talk to brands that are quite forward in their creator spend, in comparison to how much they're doing on paid media and other GTM motions, I'd say it's still single digit percentages, if not sub 1%.
Got it. And before we wrap up, let me ask you one last question. Where do you see the industry going, right? So in a year from now, 2 years from now, let's start with Faved. What are you focused on? What are you trying to drive forward? And then more broadly, like what do you think are kind of some of the things to keep an eye on in the industry?
Our ambition is to, in the next 5 years, have $1 billion being paid out to creators annually. And that fits in really well with where we think the industry is growing. Currently, there's estimate between, call it roughly 30 to $40 billion spent on creator advertising in different formats. We're pretty confident that's going to 10x. And even at a 10x, it'll still be sub a quarter of the total digital advertising spend. And we feel that the industry is, I mean, the earlier point about 1% of B2B spend going to creators is great news because more brands are going to wake up to the fact that they need to partner with creators and spend more on creators. And I think an even better aspect of that is more people are going to have a dual career in the sense that they can be a salesperson by day and they can have authority within the sales world and make an extra 30-40% of their earnings by endorsing the tools and the brands that they use.
I love that. Okay. I love that. So you're saying two things to summarize. It's like, one, there's going to be more paid ad spend reallocated to creator spend. And number two, there's going to be more people with a W-2, let's say we're in the US, use those terms. They have a full-time job and they're then doing things on the side. I actually agree. Obviously, I agree 100% with that. Stephen, thanks for coming on. I really enjoyed this conversation. We could have gone for another 30 minutes, but we do have to wrap up. We'll have to do it again soon. Where should people find you? Where can they go to find more about Faved?
They can search me on LinkedIn. Same with Faved. You can find us on LinkedIn or Instagram, and our team makes some pretty funny reels.
Nice. I'm going to go check them out. Well, thanks for joining us. We'll do it again soon.
Absolute pleasure, David. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Safe Doesn't Scale on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen. Limelight is the leading AI-powered B2B influencer marketplace and social signals platform. Brands like HubSpot, Webflow, and ZoomInfo use Limelight to power influencer programs at scale. Start your first campaign at limelighthq.com.